Sharon Stone just spilled the truth about the rumor that's followed her for decades, and Hollywood wasn't ready for the bombshell she dropped. For years, tabloids teased she might be linked to Kevin Costner, but what she finally admitted is far more explosive than anyone imagined. Think that's wild? It only scratches the surface, because behind the red carpet glamour, there's a chain of hidden events so startling, it might just change everything you think you know about her. Stay with me until the very end, or you'll miss the jaw-dropping twist that has Hollywood and fans everywhere scrambling for answers. Sharon Stone hasn't only put one rumor to rest, she's confronted multiple scandals head-on, and each truth is bigger than the last. From brutal childhood trauma to a near-death moment that changed her forever, these revelations give us the real story behind one of the most iconic figures in Hollywood. You don't want to walk away without hearing the final twist, because it ties everything together in a way even the most ardent Sharon Stone followers never saw coming. This isn't a tale of just gossip and romance. It's a testament to resilience, survival, and a defiance that has rattled the industry's biggest power players. So settle in, because once you learn the truth, you'll understand why her life has everyone talking. They say every small town has its secrets, but few places hold memories as haunting as the ones Sharon Stone carries from her youth. Raised in Meadville, Pennsylvania, she was the second of 4 children born into a modest family that struggled to make ends meet. Her mother, Dorothy, balanced accountant work with being a homemaker, while her father Joseph labored in a factory. They worked hard, but money was always tight, especially with 4 kids to support. From the outside looking in, Meadville seemed perfectly unremarkable, a typical, quiet town with humble homes and a slower pace. Yet behind the Stone family's front door lurked tensions far more severe than any neighbor ever suspected. Sharon, as it turns out, wasn't an ordinary child. In fact, she was extraordinarily bright, flaunting an IQ that tested around 154, a score that placed her in the gifted genius bracket. At first glance, you'd think that would make her the star of her grade school. But being that intelligent set her apart in some painful ways. Classmates found her intimidating, even strange. While other kids played on the swings and talked about cartoons, young Sharon was buried in books, relishing deep worlds of fantasy and knowledge that her peers barely understood. Teachers noticed her brilliance, but back then, there wasn't always a structured program for gifted children. She often felt isolated, misunderstood, and, in many instances, downright lonely. Yet her isolation at school paled in comparison to the darkness hovering in her own home. The Stone household was no stranger to strict discipline. Joseph Stone believed children should be toughened up and ready to handle life's hardships. There were arguments, tense silences, and a rigid atmosphere that left little room for playful laughter. But none of that compared to what Sharon would later describe as the true source of her childhood trauma: abuse at the hands of her maternal grandfather. For years, rumors swirled about whether her stoic demeanor as an adult was an act or a byproduct of the roles she played in Hollywood. The truth was darker. She carried scars from a violation so haunting, it took decades for her to speak publicly about it. She eventually confided that she blocked out many of the memories until therapy forced them to the surface. Her admission exploded the myth that she had breezed through childhood unscathed, revealing the unimaginable cruelty that shaped her psyche from an early age. Of course, many fans only learned of this traumatic past when Sharon Stone released her memoir, The Beauty of Living Twice, where she candidly addressed both her grandfather's abuse and her complicated relationship with her father. In one particularly chilling scene from that memoir, she recalls her grandmother locking her in a room with her sister, forcing them to look upon their grandfather's lifeless body in a funeral setting as if it were some twisted closure ritual. Viewers and readers alike were stunned to discover that the actress who exuded such glamour on screen had lived through experiences that might break anyone else. Each page of her story cast the Ice Queen image in a new light. Not a coldness, but a tough outer shell forged from trauma and survival instincts. Yet Sharon didn't allow these revelations to remain a closed chapter. She confronted them, both emotionally and publicly, giving voice to the horrors many prefer to keep hidden. This led some detractors to say she was capitalizing on her childhood for publicity, but longtime admirers realized it was simply the continuation of a pattern. Sharon Stone's life has always been about facing the ugly truths head-on. And you'd better believe she'd face more complications soon, both personal and professional, that would demand that same resilient spirit. One of those pivotal moments came when she was just 14. By then, her father's strictness had escalated to physical discipline that veered far beyond a sharp word. On a day when tension finally erupted, she stood before him, eyes ablaze with righteous anger, and challenged him directly. "What's the matter? Do you need to hit me some more to feel like a man?" Witnesses to this confrontation say you could hear a pin drop. Up to that point, Joseph Stone had exerted control through intimidation, but now his teenage daughter was calling him out in no uncertain terms. Her defiance struck a nerve. He reportedly burst into tears, confronted with the damaging impact of his actions. Fueled by years of pent-up rage and a profound sense of injustice, Sharon responded with a statement that cut even deeper. "I never loved you, and I never will." Such brutal honesty would pierce any father's heart. While it might not be the way most young teens choose to handle parental abuse, it changed the dynamic in the Stone household overnight. Joseph Stone, facing the raw emotional fallout of his daughter's words, never raised his hand to any of his children again. In the end, that standoff also marked a turning point for Sharon. She realized that if she possessed the courage to stand up to the biggest bully in her life, the barriers placed by the outside world might not be so insurmountable after all. This mental fortitude found a new test not long afterward, in a shocking event that nearly cost her her life. At the tender age of 14, Sharon was determined to prove she could handle any physical risk. She decided to break a horse, an activity that demands skill, experience, and a strong sense of fearlessness. She certainly had the last quality, if not the first two. In a moment that would foreshadow the unpredictability of her future, the horse bucked violently and charged toward a clothesline. Sharon was severely injured, her neck bearing the brunt of the collision. The accident underscored the thin line between invincibility and vulnerability. For months, she suffered from ongoing pain, an ever-present reminder that life could flip upside down with little warning. To outsiders, that ordeal may have seemed like just another rural mishap. But to Sharon, it was a stark affirmation that she was meant for something bigger than small-town Pennsylvania. Her body might have been battered, but her spirit was undefeated. She returned to high school not just determined to graduate, but to graduate early. She threw herself into academics, accelerating her studies at Seegertown High School. By 15, she'd earned her diploma and secured a scholarship to Edinburgh University. In many ways, it was an impossible feat, an ugly duckling, with an uncanny IQ, minimal resources, and a traumatic home life outpacing her peers academically. Yet there she was, stepping onto a college campus while most kids her age were barely halfway through high school. You might think that once Sharon tasted the freedom of university life, she'd feel liberated. But being so young in a collegiate environment ended up isolating her further. She described herself as a nerdy, ugly duckling among older students who seemed light years ahead in terms of social skills and romantic experiences. While others partied and casually dated, she remained buried in libraries, fascinated by creative writing and the fine arts. She was hungry for knowledge, but also dogged by the suspicion that she still hadn't found her place in the world. Meadville was now in the rearview, but her new path wasn't necessarily any easier. And soon, the pressures of adult life and financial strain caught up to her. It was at this juncture, when her life seemed to hang between the relief of escaping her hometown and the uncharted pressure of making it in a bigger world, that Sharon stepped onto a local pageant stage. The idea of entering a beauty contest seemed downright bizarre to those who knew her only as a bookish overachiever. Some say it was her mother who pushed her into it, sensing that Sharon needed a new direction, a confidence boost. Others claim it was Sharon's own curiosity that led her to sign up, driven by a quiet but unyielding ambition. Regardless of how she got there, what matters is that she walked away from that pageant with the winner's sash and an invitation to model in the bigger arenas of New York. In short order, she found herself whisked away to the bustling metropolis, her small suitcase and big dreams in tow. If Meadville was quiet and the university was merely a taste of independence, New York was an unrelenting tidal wave of possibility and competition. Casting calls, gritty apartments, and a constant hustle to stand out in a sea of aspirants. That was the modeling life. She joined the Ford Modeling Agency, one of the most prestigious in the business. Ford had discovered countless top models before her, and in some ways, Sharon was just another face in their portfolio. Yet she refused to remain anonymous, training relentlessly to perfect her runway walk, refine her poses, and learn the subtle intricacies of fashion photography. Amid that intense environment, one surprising fact kept gnawing at her. Despite all her success, landing campaigns, gracing magazine spreads, she felt hollow. Modeling was exhilarating but emotionally vapid. It was about capturing a single image that the public would consume in a glance, and that was it. Sharon longed for more depth, complexity, the chance to inhabit a story rather than just a single frame. That longing stirred a new dream, acting. She began taking classes, exploring her range, studying the craft of performance. Many around her doubted she'd succeed. They saw her as just another pretty face. But inside, she carried the trauma, the intellect, and the grit that had shaped her from childhood. And that gave her a reservoir of emotional power that few recognized. Yet, when she finally landed a minor role as an extra in Woody Allen's Stardust Memories, it was as though she'd been handed the first piece of a puzzle she'd yearned to solve. Sure, it was a background gig, a far cry from leading lady territory, but it got her on a set. She observed the hustle of movie-making, studied Allen's directorial quirks, and soaked up the energy of established actors. Those fleeting glimpses of the craft fired her up. More small roles followed, like in Deadly Blessing, 1981, and Irreconcilable Differences, 1984. And while they didn't make her famous, they honed her skills. Every setback and near miss fueled her fierce determination. Rumors would later swirl that Sharon Stone had bought her way into Hollywood or used certain connections to skip the line. For a while, tabloids even hinted she was using relationships with powerful men to land parts. But the truth was simpler and also more impressive. She worked hard. She studied, networked, endured rejection after rejection, and refused to pack her bags when others might have quit. Eventually, that unyielding drive led her to the role that would transform her image permanently. Catherine Trammell in Basic Instinct. It wasn't just another part. It was a cultural lightning bolt, one that became the talk of the industry and the world at large. As soon as the film hit theaters, it ignited endless debate. Here was a portrayal so bold and unapologetic that it challenged how women could be depicted on screen. The famed interrogation scene, in particular, drew condemnation, fascination, and borderline obsession. Sharon delivered a performance that was simultaneously seductive and menacing, exuding an icy confidence that viewers couldn't tear their eyes from. Yet behind the scenes, rumors circulated that the most shocking angle of that scene had been captured without her explicit knowledge. It triggered a media whirlwind. Some fans claimed she had been used by male directors. Others argued that she'd orchestrated the entire effect for maximum publicity. Sharon, for her part, was reportedly furious once she first viewed the footage, insisting she hadn't been fully informed. Regardless of the behind-the-scenes drama, the result was the same. Her name became synonymous with fearlessness, mystery, and controversy all at once. That success catapulted her from a hopeful actress into one of Hollywood's biggest names. Yet, with heightened fame came heightened scrutiny. Every aspect of her life turned into a potential headline. The unstoppable rumor mill began churning out theories about who she was seeing, what secret feuds she might be involved in, and how she supposedly manipulated the film industry. None of it could overshadow the raw fact that she had arrived. Sharon Stone was officially a star. You'd think that kind of breakthrough would usher in a new era of personal happiness. But in Sharon's life, triumph rarely came without an accompanying battle. If there was one topic that seemed to fascinate the gossip columnists the most, it was Sharon's love life. And for good reason. Her romantic history read like a who's who of high-profile connections. In 1984, she married producer Michael Greenberg, whom she'd met while filming The Vegas Strip War, but the marriage dissolved by 1987, partially due to the struggle to balance two demanding careers. After that, she had a series of flings, rumored romances, and short-lived relationships with various Hollywood figures, including country singer Dwight Yoakam. Each time, the tabloids jumped at the chance to paint her as either a heartbreaker or perpetually heartbroken, depending on the narrative of the month. In 1998, she married journalist and San Francisco Examiner editor Phil Bronstein. Their union seemed to promise stability, especially when they adopted a son, Rowan, 2 years later. But even that supposed fairy tale began to unravel. Critics said Sharon's unstoppable drive and Bronstein's high-pressure career path led them on separate trajectories. By 2004, they were divorced, and an intensely public custody battle ensued. One that left Sharon devastated but resolute in her commitment to motherhood. She would go on to adopt 2 more sons, Quinn and Laird, in later years. The heartbreak she endured didn't deter her from creating a family. She simply shaped it on her own terms. It was during this messy period that certain tabloids started speculating about a secret fling with Kevin Costner. The pair had known each other for years, running in similar circles of A-listers. They were often pictured at the same events, sometimes chatting and laughing in a way that set rumor mongers on fire. At a time when Sharon's own love life was so chaotic, perhaps it was easy to link her to any single successful man in Hollywood. But for whatever reason, the rumor stuck. People whispered that they'd been quietly dating for years. Others claimed they'd begun a relationship on a set or during an awards show afterparty. Every so often, the rumor would resurface, leaving fans to question whether the two had a secret romance that spanned decades. Recently, Sharon addressed that rumor directly in an interview. She was blunt. "I've known Kevin Costner for probably 30 years, and if we haven't dated so far, we're probably not going to." It was a classic Stone mic drop moment. Honest, slightly sardonic, and aimed squarely at the persistent tabloids. She confirmed what her real fans had suspected all along, that this was little more than idle speculation. And ironically, that clarity only fueled more chatter. Why? Fans asked. Did it take her so long to set the record straight? Did she secretly enjoy the rumor? Or was there some kernel of truth to it that she was withholding? To Sharon, such gossip seemed trivial compared to the real challenges she'd faced. Like the day her life almost ended. That day arrived in 2001, right when Sharon appeared to be on top of the world. She was a bankable star, a mother, and a respected figure in Hollywood. Then came the stroke, a catastrophic brain hemorrhage that lasted 9 days. Doctors estimated she had a 1% chance of survival. Overnight, the narrative shifted from Sharon Stone, unstoppable actress, to Sharon Stone, medical miracle? The severity of the stroke wasn't just about facing mortality. It also delivered a massive setback to her professional life. In the film business, time is money, and actors with uncertain health prospects are seen as high risk. Suddenly, offers dried up. Directors who once clamored to cast her chose younger, healthier talent. Worse yet, rumors circulated that her hospital stay was due to substance use or even a botched cosmetic procedure. The tabloids, never missing a chance to spin a tragedy, implied the entire situation might have been self-inflicted. But the truth was more frightening and more ordinary. A blood vessel had ruptured in her brain. In the aftermath, she had to relearn how to speak properly, to walk without stumbling, to read and process information. Imagine the frustration of being a highly intelligent, highly driven person who suddenly has to wrestle with the most basic human functions. And while she was fighting for every step of recovery, the custody battle for her son escalated. Her ex-husband challenged her ability to care for Rowan, citing the aftermath of her stroke. Although she eventually regained custody rights, the legal conflict added emotional and financial strain to an already overwhelming situation. Sharon Stone emerged from that ordeal forever changed. She's described it as a rebirth, a moment of forced reinvention. She recognized, maybe for the first time, how quickly everything could slip away. Fame, money, career, none of it guarantees safety from life's random tragedies. In the years that followed, she found Hollywood far less forgiving than she'd hoped. Projects that once would have been a sure thing were no longer coming her way, and people within the industry treated her like damaged goods. Some even noted that the shift in her appearance. She took a while to regain her former physique, didn't fit the industry's strict, often ageist standards. Instead of wallowing in bitterness, Sharon leaned into her philanthropic passions, working for HIV/AIDS awareness, helping underprivileged children through her Planet Hope organization, and speaking out about stroke prevention. Through these efforts, she found a new dimension to her celebrity: activism. She traveled internationally, raised huge sums of money for various charities, and lent her name to causes that needed the kind of attention only an A-lister can provide. In 2005, she was recognized by the Harvard Foundation with a humanitarian award for her philanthropic work. She famously traveled to Israel, appearing in a press conference with Nobel Peace Prize laureate Shimon Peres, whom she considered a mentor. Over time, philanthropic events replaced red carpet premieres as her primary public arena, at least for a while. And in a poetic twist, rumors that once fixated on her love life or rumored feuds shifted to new speculation. Is Sharon Stone done with Hollywood altogether? But if there's one thing consistent about Sharon Stone, it's that she rarely does what people expect. She never outright walked away from acting. She simply took on fewer roles and sought out projects on her own terms. Eventually, she popped up in movies and TV shows, reminding audiences that she still had that magnetic screen presence. But the break from constant Hollywood hustle changed her. Instead of chasing big paychecks, she selected roles that spoke to her. And whenever she encountered fresh gossip, whether about her private life, her finances, or her relationships, she either ignored it or addressed it head-on, no in-between. That openness extended to dating, which, in the modern age, often means venturing into online apps or sites. Sharon decided to try her luck on Bumble, a move that would have been unthinkable for a star of her caliber in a previous generation. But in an era where everyone's online, it didn't seem so far-fetched, until Bumble banned her, thinking her profile was fake. When users saw Sharon Stone as a name, they reported it. She ended up blasting Bumble on social media, tweeting that they were guilty of being exclusionary for not believing a real A-lister would be on the platform. The story made headlines worldwide. Bumble quickly reinstated her profile and apologized. You'd think that might have led to a cascade of interesting matches, but Sharon soon tired of the superficial nature of online dating. She complained that people misrepresented themselves constantly, using old photos or making outlandish claims about their success. One comedic moment involved a user who claimed he was a successful financier but showed up looking and sounding completely different in person. It was the epitome of modern dating nonsense, and Sharon candidly shared her experience with the press, cautioning others to be vigilant. For a while, she persevered, hoping to find a genuine connection. But eventually, she declared she was done with dating apps, complaining that people seemed to be after the Sharon Stone image, not the genuine person underneath. The star who once enthralled audiences in Basic Instinct had run headlong into the jaded reality of swiping left and right. By 2020, she made a broader statement: "I'm done dating. I've had it." On the Drew Barrymore show, she explained that after all the heartbreak, the near-death experience, and the ever-present nonsense of fame, she was perfectly content focusing on her kids and her own well-being. That statement, ironically, sent another wave of rumors swirling. Some said she was simply bitter, others suggested she'd secretly found someone and was keeping it hush-hush. Sharon, for her part, shrugged it all off, reaffirming that she wasn't closing her heart to love entirely. But she saw no point in actively seeking it under such inauthentic circumstances. In typical Stone fashion, she found a way to be both pragmatic and romantic. If something real happened organically, she wouldn't deny it, but she had no interest in forcing connections that didn't serve her growth. So where does that leave us with the Kevin Costner rumor, the one that triggered this entire conversation? In her own words, she never dated him, never had a romantic liaison with him, and finds it bizarre that people still pair their names together after all these years. She says they're friendly colleagues, nothing more. And that's that. If you're looking for shocking proof of a secret affair, well, you might be disappointed. But if you're looking for a shocking revelation about Sharon Stone's life, the revelations she's offered are far more potent than any rumored fling. She survived an abusive childhood, overcame the trauma of physical violence, tackled Hollywood's relentless machine, emerged from a near-fatal stroke, became a mother against all odds, and still found time to champion causes that help thousands of people worldwide. Ultimately, the rumor about Kevin Costner is just a small footnote in a sprawling life story brimming with more staggering truths. Yes, she cleared the air by confirming the rumor is false. But in doing so, she also confirmed that speculation about her personal affairs pales in comparison to the real struggles she's confronted and conquered. And perhaps that's the real message. The illusions we chase in celebrity gossip often blind us to the real heart of a person's journey. Sharon Stone has said she isn't consumed by regrets. She's openly discussed the mistakes she's made, but also the lessons she's learned, lessons about self-worth, about not letting others define your identity, about pushing forward when the world tries to shove you back. Her entire career has been a study in perseverance, from the days of small modeling gigs to her explosive rise in Basic Instinct to her philanthropic redirection post-stroke. She's never settled for being a mere footnote or a fleeting star in a town that chews up and spits out the hopeful. Instead, she's set a precedent for resilience. Every rumor she's faced has either been dispelled or proven irrelevant in the face of her truth. By the time the credits roll on Sharon Stone's life, and let's be clear, she seems nowhere near slowing down, it'll be obvious that she forged a legacy bigger than any single rumor, scandal, or Hollywood triumph. Hers is a story about fighting for every inch of respect, love, and personal freedom. And ironically, it's the very reason so many fans remain utterly captivated. They see themselves in her struggles, in her capacity to overcome, and in her refusal to let cynics or cynicism define her. For more of the latest news, check out this video.